Hi, this is technically editor me. So before we even get into this episode, just want to let y'all know this is the last episode of season 1. I didn't know it at the time. I knew that I wanted to do a season 2 and I thought this episode would be the season 2. So it is a question and answer episode, just like the 2 episodes before. Crazy to say there's another season. And we are planning season 2, and I promise it will come out very, very soon. And I'm sorry for ghosting, but I need a little time to prepare for the launch and the changes that season 2 will bring for us. Okay, hi, it's your girl Jamila, and this is Hardship with Ease. I created this podcast because I constantly was challenged through a year of hardship about who I was. I struggled to think about how I go through things, all the things that were happening in my life, and then how they even affect me as a person or my identity, whether that's being Muslim, a woman of color, a middle child, a recovering perfectionist, also recovering overachiever, also recovering people pleaser, as well as still a judgy bitch and a crybaby. So that's where this podcast comes in. Advice feels like a drag, honestly. And everyone has some type of playbook to sell you about how to just do everything completely right. That's not me. This is just a space. There's no right answers. Just conversation about thoughts and conclusions I came to as I started to make more and more decisions for myself. Because I wish I had a central place that gave me a chance to think about some of these things as I was going through it. And ask myself questions and go through my journey without all the external input. Because I wish I had a central place that gave me a chance to think about some of these things without thinking too much about the right answer. And at the bare minimum, survive. And on the brighter side, allow myself to grow into the woman I need to be. And if you're listening, I hope you find your own answers and feel like you're sitting in a convo with me. Okay, and guess what? Since we do an interview now, it feels even more like a convo, okay? And I will say, guys, I'm unscripted, so don't get on me. I sat down and maybe spent like 20 to 30, just like reflecting on my past week or two. And then I came to this question of, when did I grow up? Like, why am I not naive anymore? Why is it like I'm taking on responsibilities and shit? Like, what is this shift that I've had in my life to start feeling more and more like adult? And it doesn't feel fun. It doesn't feel like I'm wise and older. And to be fair, like, my frontal lobe developed a year ago. It should not be right now that like I'm going through these conversations with myself and thinking about things. And so I decided that we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the beautiful idea of becoming an adult internally before externally having anyone notice or even having like things you can point out. So I've been asking myself this week, why can't I point to my growth outside of myself, and why does it feel like all the growth is in my brain? What better way to do this and like talk about this than just have a couple questions leading us through this kind of concept that I was thinking about and see like what does my answer sound like. I will say I did read over these questions and chose like the best versions and like edited questions that I felt like I could talk about. But I didn't think too hard of like what my answer is. It's playing on my internal thought process about the question of, oh my God, am I an adult? Oh my God, why is it all internally I'm an adult? Oh my God, how does that like reflect in different ways? So the first question is, when did you first realize that listening to everyone was ruining your own internal logic? And this first section is called the shift. I personally love to listen to everybody, guys. I just love everyone and their thoughts, and I just want advice, and I just want to know what's happening in the world. And so I am a learner. I would say I'm a life learner even to this day, being outside of traditional schooling. I love to learn. Oh my God, I just thought about how I signed up for classes and I don't even remember. So yeah, I love to learn. Like, that's just something I love to do. And I think for me, I listened way too well to everyone outside of me, and I constantly had to like sit and take everyone's feedback, think about their feedback, see how it fits into my system and thought process. But we talked a bit about this recently on one of my episodes about how I would sit and just take everything in and then try to be like, okay, how does that fit into me? But eventually I do feel like during that time of starting off podcasts, I started to realize like, oh my God, low key, I need to stop. It's really reflected in the podcast as an example, and then even in my own reflection in life. I just kind of don't listen to people anymore. Like, I will listen to you. I will be like, are you as equal to me? No, then I'm not listening. Are you living a life, like somebody said a TikTok quote of like, are you living a life I want to live? Then I'm not listening. And I stand on that. Okay, so the next question is, what are the signs that you are starting to outgrow being good as an identity? Oh, the other thing is, listening stemmed from being good. If you listen well to instructions, it is very easy to pass the test. What test? The test of life in my head. The test that anyone will ask. If you know or even predict people's like wants and needs, like then you're just gonna be good, because like there's no way I forgot your birthday because boom, here's all the things. There's no way I did this wrong because like I'm trying to be good. I don't think there's a specific earliest sign that I stopped trying to be good. I think like I was just like, I think during the hardship year, which was last year. Dang, we're about to be like a year away from that. But I just remember like trying my, like I generally did my best. I generally did everything good, and I wasn't like rewarded in a way. I wasn't like systematically rewarded. I wasn't like internally rewarded in my heart or like by others. That is like, do good, get good, and I'm not getting good. What the fuck, y'all? And so like I just kind of gave up on that concept. Like I do good to want to do good, but I don't do it because I want to good as an identity. What rule did you follow for years that suddenly stopped making sense? I think on the like concept of rules, if I've not said this before, I will say this 1,000 times. I'm like a robot. I love to make rules into my system and be like, okay, so that's the new rule I have to follow. And if I get too many rules, like my brain starts malfunctioning. Like, baby, what do you mean we're not doing this? Sometimes I don't read social cues. So like for me, just making rules in my head made it easier. And so what rules I've been following this year that slowly stopped making sense, like I think like that good, if I do good, I get good concept. I definitely think like the idea that everyone is looking out for me, that everyone is inherently wanting the best for me. Even though I didn't truly believe that, I just felt like almost this responsibility. Like I have to generally constantly want good for people because they generally want constantly good for me. And if they don't want good for me, then they're just an evil person and I don't have to care. And it was just like a very black and white thinking that I had to like kind of stop myself from thinking about. But yeah, like the two things I would say, black and white thinking and then like entitlement towards being good, are the two rules that just started to not make sense because I was just facing things that constantly said, here's an example of somebody next to you who doesn't want good for you, but you're friends with them and you're like, dang, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Or like somebody who does want good for you, but their good for you isn't the good you need, and now you're confusion. Too much. So my brain just shut down at some point. When did being helped start feeling like a limitation instead of support? Okay, I think that's a good like transition that I did without even thinking about it. I said this line about like sometimes the good other people want for you is not the good that you need. And I can like talk all day about this like concept, but I'm gonna say essentially there's a point where you start to realize things. You start to realize like listening to everyone is a very challenging thing. It like just gets filled in your head, and then you have to like filter it through. And think about like social media, y'all. Having TikTok, having Instagram, YouTube, the people in your lives, like adults, classmates. I think we really live in an age that they're just like stuffing ideas in your head. And for me, I love to double check. I love to like think things through. And like when somebody gives me advice, right? If we think about the rules thing, I always want to be good. So I'm like, does this connect to my concept of good? If so, here's another rule to add on. When you start to struggle, babes, like it's actually really hard to balance every single rule that somebody told you. And it starts being almost a limitation to you doing things. And so like that is very self concept that's not really like including other people in. But like essentially I'm saying you don't blame people when it's a self concept. It's like, yo, let me stop listening to everybody because I actually need to figure my stuff out. It doesn't matter if the people are good or not. It doesn't matter the person's intention. That's one thing. I think the other part of being helped, feeling like a limitation, is that you don't take into account that person's worldview. You don't take into account the critiques that you could have towards that person, whether you love them or not. And I think that was like something I really struggled with, being able to critique when advice came to me or even help came to me. Because like, you know, if someone did my hair, I would hate it sometimes as a child, and I would just feel like, all right, well, I have to accept it because that person's intentions were good, even though that's not what I wanted. And I think that was like a really hard shift to have, and like how it can kind of hinder you when you're like just super absorbent towards everything around you. Eventually you kind of hit a threshold, and this next like session of questions kind of focuses on that threshold. We're talking about building my own internalized concept that I would argue is like adulthood. The first question I really, really love is, what type of support now makes you feel like you're talked down to? If someone came to me in adulthood and had a conversation with me, I think I started to realize, especially within like spaces that I grew up in, I'm still sought out in a way that a child would be sought out. And for me, I feel like I have a much more complicated thought process. And then I also have responsibilities. I have things that I never did as a child. And I really try to take myself seriously and some of the expectations I have for myself, whether that's like discipline or anything. So I give that preference. So I recently had a conversation that literally like sparked this whole like, shit, wait, this is because I'm internalizing adulthood. Y'all are not seeing it yet. So like I had someone who I really do respect even to this day come up to me and like have a conversation with me and wanting like updates, and we're just chatting. And at one point they asked a question. I'm not going to say the specific question, but I'll give like something very similar of like, you know, you can check in with the child about like how they take care of themselves. It's this whole process of learning. Like for example, brushing teeth. It's cute to ask a 5-year-old if they brush their teeth. Sometimes a 6-year-old might not brush their teeth, but like when you hit 30, there's no saving you. There's no guiding, there's no saving you. And for me, I guess like, I'm not saying in whatever like capabilities those questions are, like honestly they're like religious questions. It just was a questioning in my own head of like, I tried to be very honest when I used to answer these questions. And so like when people used to ask me questions of like, did you pray? And I didn't, like I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't lie. And so like coming back into adulthood and having my own relationship with like religion. I was so funny. I was not going to even talk about religion, but I guess I am. Having my own relationship with religion, having my own relationship with health, having my own relationship with like so many things in my life, it just made no sense to me to sit here and say, yo, this is what I'm doing. Like, does this match what you expect from me? And I'm not saying that the person necessarily wanted me to be like, here's all the things that match, but I realize this person interacts with a lot of children more. And it feels a bit like, I can't say the word, but it feels like making me into a child. It feels like you're making it as if I don't have the capabilities to do things, and it does make me annoyed. And so I think I really realize now, support that looks at me like a child, support that questions my capabilities or my thought process while trying to guide me really irritates me. Like point blank period, it really irritates me. And I, like that's such a threshold thing to be like, you know what? Don't like that concept. Next question. I'm like fighting through these questions, y'all. What irritated you recently that told the truth faster than your calm explanation did? Oh, irritation is like my best understanding of things. There's so many examples. I think like I was irritated about how much effort I was putting into something recently, and just like everyone else putting like half effort into, and then I paused and realized these people did not ask me to put effort in. And if this effort is irritating me, then I don't have to, because the logical calm part is like, okay, well, you committed to whatever this is already. But the irritation told me, hold up, girl, just reach out to somebody else, pass it on, and call it a day. And that made it so much easier for me. And I think for me, I don't know if other people like this, but irritation really tells me the truth faster, because if resentment, like if I'm resenting anything, then I actually don't like this thing. And if you are a people pleaser, recovering people pleaser, you will know. Like anytime you're resentment about something, you're not chill, you're not low maintenance. What internal instinct do you now trust that you used to ignore? Irritation. I kind of already said it. irritation. I used to just think I was a bad person. I used to just be like, oh, you're just like a judgmental person. I am, and I'll stand on it, and I will continue to judge because that's how I have my life better. I think I ignored a lot in my life because I would like voice out an opinion and people would be like, that's weird, that's wrong, and I'd be like, oh, okay, so I'm not supposed to move like this. And I will say, like, unfortunately, one of my favorite books, I just like the craziness of the way this man writes. No longer human, he has a bunch of, like, I don't like him as a character. Point blank period, I will say that. I don't co-sign him. Burn to hell, like, I do not care. But he has this, like, beautiful way of just writing, like, the most, like, judgmental shit in the beginning of those books. And I remember being like, that's so wrong. But it's like, okay, if you're, like, irritated not liking these people around you, that's a reflection of you shouldn't be in those spaces. Clock it, sis. Because if you like those spaces, you would never be thinking crazy like that. And I think that's, like, really an internal instinct. If I start thinking crazy like him, I'm like, oh, I'm in places I shouldn't be right now. I'm around people that are not reflecting what I want to be around. I don't think it's like a cute game of piousness to act like you should be surrounded by people you don't vibe with or don't like, and you feel irritated, you have thoughts like any thought the dude in the book had, and like, you know, internal judgment, then maybe you shouldn't be in those spaces. And then the last question of this section, what did you stop asking permission for? Quietly, without telling anybody. Guys, I could say 1,000 things. If I could sum it up real quick, I stopped asking permission to think. I stopped asking permission if this is cool, because the only person who can live with the consequences of my own thoughts, the consequences of my own actions, was me. And so once I stopped asking other people, is it okay if I don't like being here because this is going to be like we're eating food I don't like? No, like if I'm not eating food I don't like, if I'm hungry and I know I have to go home or whatever it is, I'm gonna leave. Like, it's not even mean. It's not even like nasty about it. It's just more of, you don't need people to co-sign what you do, because at the end of the day, if you decide to go run a marathon with people and you don't like running, you do all of that stuff, you're gonna be the one laying in bed in agony after that marathon because you never chose what you wanted. You don't need the permission of other people to be like, no, I don't want to do this, or yes, I do want to do this. That's how you become bitter. Okay. Whew. Felt like that was a little bitter energy right there. Okay, we're in the next stages, guys. I know. Just like, if we sit here and think about some of the stuff I was saying before I start yapping into more questions. So far, internalized adulthood, as I claimed it, it really led me to start thinking about like, wait, I don't need y'all to teach me like a kid. I actually need to start listening to myself as well. It's like dual concepts. And so like the threshold is definitely like pushing back, like, okay, how do I, now that I know I don't need all this stuff, how do I push more and more back, that I have more space to breathe? And then the next stage is like building. Okay, you have the space to breathe, but are you doing shit? I stand on that question. I stand on that concept. That's not a question I'm asking. That's a concept. And if we're going to ask about the building stage, the first question is, what part of your life are you finally building instead of talking about? A lot. I got plans that I cannot disclose. No, for real though, like, I just think I do as I please more than anything now. If I see something, I go for it. And it's really not about like sitting here and saying like, oh, I really want to try this, I really want to do that. In fact, I feel like I've become a lot more private on some of the things I'm doing, to the point that like someone will be like, oh my god, I saw you did this on Instagram, and I'm like, what? I used to post my life so easily on Instagram, but now I'm like, doesn't it? I didn't even go out that day. That photo's from 4 weeks ago. I'm a pariah, what can I say? But no, for real, I'm just like, actually like, wow, like, you know, these photos I post are very different from like what my reality is and things I'm doing, and it's like, those are not like things I'm like super excited about. So I think like I'm really off the question, but when you're finally like building, I will say as a caveat, you start to realize some of the things that like people have told you is important or like are very interested in, you're not even interested in, because you like have something else you're building. Even if it's not like, if you're building like a stick castle and people are like, oh my god, look, but you did this on the side, like people might look at some of the things you do and see a lot of importance in it, and you might not feel any importance to it. But some like dumb little project like this podcast, like you might feel very proud about, but no one will understand. But it's like, girl, I do not care, because I got a mic And I'm talking my crap. Like, that's all I need. I don't care if people are really like listening or not. I would love for people to listen, but it's not that deep. Very off topic. Next question. What would executing your ideas force you to admit about yourself? This is a hard question just because it makes me very nervous. I think as I'm executing my ideas, as I'm doing things, right, I'm moving past it like, okay, I don't need to prove that I'm doing things to you, but I also hold myself in this room of you need to do these things. I think executing my ideas really puts me in a vulnerable place of like, you kept everything to yourself. You kind of are building in like secret. Even though I'm not building in secret, I just don't like, if it's not thought out, I'm not going to throw it out in the air for people to critique. But it feels like that when there's action behind it. Like when you're doing something, I feel like we live in a world of performance. It just feels like it's for me to judge. It's for me to see. And that's like not even me saying that towards other people. I know I do that as well. And I think like the hardest thing to admit is like, if I do these things, I have to generally show once again that I am capable. I think for a very long time, I did not want to admit that I was capable anymore. I wanted to like just pretend my capabilities came from outside forces and not internal. And so like me doing stuff without like safety rails, without like some type of beautiful like big institute slapping, yeah, smart on my brain or on my head, like it feels so much dumber, but like I kind of understand where it's going, if that makes sense. Like I have to fully trust myself without feeling like I have to admit to others my capability exists. It's like internally admitting I'm capable, and I hate that. I hate that so much. And it's just like very nerve-wracking, especially if you went from thinking so much about other people's like critiques and thought processes and like sitting here and like saying, okay, do I use this, do I not, X, Y, and Z, to being like, okay, I'm building something. And then you kind of get a flood of here's a bunch of opinions, and holding that door and not even being interested in like, okay, I want to hear what your opinions are because y'all haven't done what I'm doing, so I don't think your opinions will be helpful. And that hurts so much to say out loud, and it just feels like scary to hold the door closed. Who do you become when you're in motion instead of reflecting? Okay, we see myself reflecting on here all the time. Motion. The reason why I did questions is because I feel like they're more motion than reflection. I feel like I become a lot sharper. I feel like I tend to care less about others and others' opinions when I'm in motion, just because it's just so much easier to move in motion. When you're reflecting, you're very careful. I feel like reflection is very careful because I love to keep myself accountable. I'd love to look and say like, well, there's always another side to the story. I might feel this way, but that person might not feel this way. So even like I can sit here and be like, oh, that person's a bitch. Like I will say that, but even in my hearts of hearts, I'm like, yeah, but I probably was a bitch in ways to them. And I wouldn't feel some type of way of like someone was like, yeah, bitch, this, that, and the third about me. Now, I would be a little, I'm not even gonna lie, I would be a little, but that's just me being human and having an ego. But when it comes to motion, I think it's a completely different now, because motion, I've stopped letting that reflective like carefulness bleed into motion. I'm just like, at this point, I just need to do, because like if I don't and you have critiques or someone has critiques, like, okay, then do it, like then whatever. I just think it's really hard to explain. I'm doing a terrible job at this question. Motion means you're building. There's no right answer. There will always be an answer you didn't choose. There will always be an answer that in hindsight 2020 you can reflect on, but in that moment you can't, because you only have so many limited thoughts. I think I answered it. I think whatever you can interpret in what I said, that will tell you your own interpretation of who I am. I hate questions about who I am because I never know the answer. I'm really bad at understanding myself. Last question. When did staying still start to cost you more than mistakes? This whole year. I will say I realized like sitting still, I'm not mad at like the year I took up reflection. Yeah, that's what we're calling 2025. Reflection. Year of hardship 2024. Year of reflection 2025. But there's a point where you have to move. Like I can't be in the place I am right now next year. And I'm just saying that, and just like if I'm not building behind me. And I think that's a perfect like ending question to the building stage. I think the building stage is a lot more messier. It's so much easier for me in reflection to reflect, but when it comes to like motion, like that question, it's just I can't predict where the parts go. I can't predict anything outside of I have to act. And I don't like that. I don't like that I have to like be like, all I can do is act. I can't predict anymore. And I think that's something I really grown into when it comes to the building stage. I don't try to predict anymore. And when, if you asked me like 2-3 years ago, my biggest thing was I would try to predict the right answer. That's the being good thing. Oh my god, maybe this all does connect. Okay, Act 4. Watch. When did you stop wanting teachers and start wanting witnesses? I never thought I did. Like, that's a crazy question. But I think when you want to be good, you feel like there's always a right way to be good. And I feel like you want to learn from people. I also think as a child, like, throwing away the being good concept, as a child, you are constantly being taught. Like, we as a world love to teach children, which I think is a great thing. We should not stop doing that. But there's a point in life where I don't need a lesson from you. Even if you're older than me, even like, does your life reflect what I want to live? Is your advice coming from the fears that you have lived? Is it coming from the growth you wish you had? Like, what are your advices coming from? Like, really taking in those like situations. And here's the thing, when you have a witness, right? No matter the age, no matter the situation, a witness or a counterpart, a peer, right? And peer can be any age group. You can have dialogue about those things. You can sit down and be like, yeah, like, you fear X, Y, and Z. Why? That happened to you? Okay, like, and you can take that concept and just really reflect on it in your own interpretation and way without that person feeling like you aren't listening. A teacher, you should listen to a teacher. And it's really crazy to say that I actually hate being taught. In a sense, I love classrooms. I love class. I will continue to go to classes. I love smart people, but I don't love smart people of tell me what to do. And I went to like an entrepreneurship event, and I just remember everyone asking questions of like how to do their specific thing the right way, and I'm being like so dead ass confused because like I'm coming in asking, and I'm not trying to be like I'm better than everyone, but I coming in like asking questions of like, yeah, like, but how do you get over this? Like, how do you get over the fear, right? And for me, listening to their answer, it's not that I want their answer to be my answer. It's just zero perspective that I have not thought about yet. That's like my questioning concept. And at one point even they were like, what are you trying to do? And I was like, what? Wait, I don't know how to explain that to you. I didn't think I was going to get asked that. Mind you, it's an entrepreneurship thing. Like, why did I not think that? But yeah, like, I think when you want witnesses, when you want peers, when you want collaborators, you aren't interested in there being a specific right answer. When you want a teacher, you want a right answer. You want the responsibility to be less, and I'm not interested in that. And so I think like that has made me a bit like more taken aback towards certain things in my life, because I'm like, wait, I actually trust my inner thoughts. Like, what internal shifts did you grow into quietly because explaining it would cheapen it? I mean, if I explain them, would it not cheapen them? But a lot. I think all the things I listed above, all the things I listed before, we don't even have to go through all those things. I think the biggest thing is my mouth shut. Like, that's the greatest part of it. I didn't feel like I had to post every single win. I didn't feel like I had to prove I could be pretty. I had to prove that I've lost weight. I had to prove that I am enjoying life. I don't have to prove to anyone that I'm enjoying this time and I'm not suffering because of the expectations that are put on me. Right? I don't have to prove it. Before I felt like I had to, now I don't. So I think like the biggest shift of just like not having to explain all my shifts. That's a good answer. Okay, what did you outgrow so deeply that returning to it felt impossible or even for nostalgia? A lot of things, everything and nothing. I think the biggest thing that I don't feel nostalgia about is being a teenager. Or even like my 20s. I don't sit here and view things in nostalgia of like, I remember, I don't have nostalgia that much. Like, I can nostalgize against like TV shows or like the best summer ever and stuff like that. I can look fondly back, but I don't sit here in this way that I think like is so common. And I'm not saying just towards like life, but this idea of it was so much easier when I didn't have responsibility. I think that's something I used to carry a lot. I'm not even saying other people had that, but I used to have that a lot. Like, it was so much easier when it was so clear. It was so much easier when it was this and that. And I think that's such a struggle of your 20s, especially if you're in your 20s now in this horrible job market. Like, shout out to y'all who are looking for jobs, or you're in your 20s and you're just trying to figure things out. I think it's really, really hard now because you don't get like that grace. And so for me, I just feel like I've outgrown that pace of wanting to feel small again, wanting to feel safe again, because I realized even if I sat in those spaces for years, I would feel uncomfortable. I would feel uncomfortable because I'm not growing in the ways I should. I'm not taking risks. And I would say this also in a beautiful way of like, it's not just like in failure, because you might think of like, okay, working a dead end job. You could be working like a nice job, like a very expensive nice job, but it's not fulfilling you anymore, or you're just kind of a ghost through life. And I think for me, I don't have any nostalgia towards like stability for the sake of stability. I don't have that. And whether that's you looking at your teenagehood at fondly, or looking at like nostalgia towards like if you had a stable job and you lost that job, and nostalgia, like heavy nostalgia towards that, because I don't. I really don't. So we're just going to talk about the future. Not in the sexy way of like my dreams and hopes and all that. Maybe we'll do like a trying to build, like you talked about, the current version of you and like how I'm sitting, and I'm just not really like looking back nostalgically, or like I'm not really sitting here to feel like I have to prove anything. But then I also talked about like I stopped wanting to be like I talk big game. Let's be honest, I talk big game. So it's like, okay, girl, you ain't shit. What you doing to support that big game? Okay. The first question is, what are you building now that only makes sense because of who you became first internally? I love, 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 love that question. I could talk forever. But essentially, I am now trying to be, and this is probably the first place I'll ever say it, outside of like one or two people, like family and a few friends that know. I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. Trying to be an entrepreneur, and it is very, very hard. And I love it. I love it, love it, love it so much. But I think like if I was more interested in worrying about like predicting things around me and how will people react and all those things, I think this would be a lot harder. And then if I was just so comfortable in being in spaces that I did not feel, that I felt like I had to perform, I don't think I would be comfortable either there. And so I think like I've worked really, really, really hard to be the woman I think I am now. I think she's there sometimes. Sometimes the other one, the gremlin comes out, but like I think, the smart one comes out sometimes, the elegant version. And I think really just building by yourself without any reeling, without like somebody holding your hand telling you how to do it, it's really, really hard. But I will say a beautiful thing of, I recently was trying to explain what I was doing to somebody who's like like someone who's pretty successful allegedly. I don't really know that well. I said one line and he finished like the full thing of what I was trying to do, and he was like, yeah, you should do this and this and this. Mind you, that's what I've been trying to build. I was like, damn, okay, I am building. I was like, okay, finally, someone like who kind of gets, like somebody who in the future I would like to be like, validated my concept and my knowledge and my work ethic towards what I'm doing. Not necessarily like, oh, you're so smart, you're doing good. It's just, that's a good idea. This is what you should do. And I was doing those things. I didn't have to tell him that, right? I didn't need a pat on the back, but it was like, damn, okay, I'm doing it. And on that note, what future version of you scares you because she will no longer need anyone's permission? I think like when, like I said, entrepreneurship, I haven't launched things yet. I'm like building still in my room like things. And so when I launch things, I think I'm so scared of like, I do that and then I'm never scared again. I'm never scared of other people's opinions. I'm never scared of like, is this right? Is this wrong? Like, do I have to check with other people? Like, I say all this big game throughout this entire episode of like, yeah, internally, but I just have not had externally the best time when it comes to feeling confident and like not caring. And so I just choose not to perform at all. And so now that I'm building something up that's not a performance, but would be viewed, essentially, because entrepreneurship, you would be viewed, I'm just kind of like, I kind of hate that. Like, because if I can do that, I think my desires and hunger towards bigger goals will be even bigger. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, guys. I don't know. My heart feels weak for this. And to end it on the last question, what would you lose if you ignored all of this, all this clarity? Everything. Like, if I had all of this internal adulthood, as we said, of when did I stop being a kid and when did I start taking responsibility and start feeling irked by people trying to tell me what to do, or even like I stopped listening to people and I started being more and more in my own head and like this internal building, I would lose. What's the point of all of this if I just don't listen to it? If I get too scared to do that thing, if I listen to everybody and sat in my brain of an office and took every single person's opinion on all those things, I don't think I would have anything. I think I would be bitter, and bitter in any ways, whether it's like, oh, I go back into trying to work in academia. I would be bitter if I decide, fuck it, I'm gonna work at Publix. I'm still gonna be bitter. My mom says a beautiful line. If I don't do this, I will always question what would I have been if I did it. She said, I will live the rest of my life thinking about certain things if I never did it. And I really will say I got that from her, unfortunately. I will constantly think about it, and I know I will, so I have to do it. And all this internal work was a foundation to whatever comes next. And yeah, so is the adulthood internalized? Yes, 100%. Could I be better at this? 100%. And I'll be honest, if I build the external factors, if I'm super, super cool and people notice that, that's great. But at the end of the day, like, definitely the internal part is great for me, because even if I lose the external part again, or for whatever reason, I could still get back up and redo it. And I think that is what makes all of this a stronger version. And it's not just towards entrepreneurship, but towards like literally everything in life.